Let's talk about one of the most fascinating puzzles in music history. A group that sold millions of records, created iconic hits, but, well, they weren't really a band at all. So who were they? Let's get into it. You know this sound. Oh, you definitely know it. It's the sound of pure adrenaline. It's introduced champions, kicked off epic games for decades. But have you ever stopped to think, who actually made this? Was it some huge rock band, a famous film composer? The answer is, not what you'd expect.
So who was it? Well, here's a hint. It wasn't four friends in a garage who got lucky. And it wasn't some flashy supergroup that toured the world. Nope. The masterminds behind that music played by a completely different set of rules.
It was the Alan Parsons Project. And the story behind that name is just as unique and out there as their sound. It's a story about a genius in the recording studio, a visionary songwriter, and an idea that pretty much flipped the entire music industry on its head.
Okay, so to really understand what the project was, you first have to know the man himself, Alan Parsons. Long before his name was on an album cover, he was the secret weapon behind the scenes for some of the biggest bands on the planet.
I mean, picture this. It's the legendary Abbey Road studios, and a teenage Alan Parsons is starting a career that would put him right at the epicenter of rock and roll history. He was literally shaping the sounds we all know and love. Just look at this resume for a second. It's unbelievable. He's an assistant engineer on the Beatles' Abbey Road. Then he becomes the engineer for Pink Floyd's masterpiece, The Dark Side of the Moon. That's not just being in the room, that's crafting the sonic landscape of a generation. His work got him so much attention that he started producing huge hits for other artists. The guy was a legend before he even started his own thing. So when you've already worked with the Beatles and Pink Floyd, what do you do next? Well, for Alan Parsons, it all came down to a chance meeting and an idea, a really, really revolutionary idea. And of all places, he meets this guy, Eric Woolfson, in the studio canteen. Woolfson was a songwriter and a composer, and he started out as Parsons' manager. But he had a much, much bigger vision in mind. This right here, this was the light bulb moment. Woolfson looked at film directors like Alfred Hitchcock or Stanley Kubrick. They were the real stars of their movies, you know? The director was the main attraction, and he thought, wait a minute, why can't a music producer be the director of an album? The person with the vision, the sonic architect, they could be the star. Man, that's exactly what they created. The core of it was just two guys. Parsons handled all the incredible production and engineering, and Woolfson wrote the songs. But for every single track, they'd bring in this rotating cast of amazing musicians and singers to bring their ideas to life. Think of them as the directors casting different actors for different roles. And here's the kicker. They never played live. It was a pure studio creation. So, what did this producer-led project actually sound like? Well, they weren't just making albums with a collection of songs. They were building entire sonic worlds, kind of like movies for your ears. I mean, check out their first album. For their debut, they decided to adapt the dark, spooky stories of Edgar Allan Poe into music. How ambitious is that? And on the song The Raven, Parsons actually sang the lead vocal through a vocoder, which was incredibly futuristic for 1976. They were pushing boundaries right out of the gate. And they didn't stop there. Their next album, I, Robot, dove headfirst into science fiction. Another one, Eye in the Sky, explored ideas about surveillance and belief. Each album was this self-contained universe you were supposed to get lost in, from the first track to the last. But, you know, things weren't always perfect. There's this legendary story of their lost album. Back in 1979, they were in the middle of some really tense contract negotiations. So they went into the studio and in just 3 days recorded this entirely instrumental album that was basically designed to be rejected. The label hated it, and for decades, Alan Parsons himself wanted nothing to do with it. He was basically like, that was just to fulfill our contract. I hope those tapes disappear forever. It's such a fascinating peek behind the curtain at the hardball side of the music business. So you have this band that isn't really a band, making these dense, cinematic albums about sci-fi and literature. It kind of sounds like a cult act, doesn't it? Well, you'd be wrong. Their legacy is massive, and I'm willing to bet you know it way better than you realize.
Over a 15-year run, the Alan Parsons Project released 11 studio albums. And these weren't just niche records. They sold millions and millions of copies and had huge hit singles all over the world.
And that brings us right back to where we started. That heart-pounding instrumental that gets everyone hyped up, it has a name. It's called Sirius, and it's the opening track from their biggest album,
Eye in the Sky.
The cultural footprint of this one track is just staggering. It became the unforgettable theme for Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls dynasty in the 90s. The Saints used it at the Super Bowl. It's been in movies, commercials, a theme for a pro wrestler. It's everywhere. This is the ultimate proof that their weird concept worked. A song created by these invisible studio architects became a cultural landmark.
So, if you're ready to dive into their amazing catalog, here's a quick guide. If you love that literary, gothic vibe, you have to start with their Poe album, Tales of Mystery and Imagination. If you're a sci-fi fan, iRobot is absolutely essential. And if you want to hear their biggest hits and where Sirius came from, then you've got to put on Eye in the Sky.
The story of the Alan Parsons Project is just such a great reminder that some of the most powerful music we have isn't made by rock stars in the spotlight, but by the wizards behind the curtain. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? As you're listening to your favorite music today, who are the hidden architects, the producers, the engineers, the Alan Parsenses of right now who are quietly shaping the soundtrack of all of our lives?